Reporters climb, producers jive. They wanna be down with the gang.
So we're in your hometown of Seattle, obviously. I want to take it back a little bit, man. I want to talk about Capitol Hill and Garfield High School, and like how did we get here? Like, what was young Ben like? What was young Ben like, and how did you get into this crazy hip hop thing and it became such a part of your life?
I had an extra neighbor, and he loved gangster rap music.
You don't say.
Yeah, and that was it. It was like certain music just connects with you, and I don't know what it is. I don't think it's like geographic. I think it's an influence, but rap music just always spoke to me, and other music didn't. That's just what, you're 7 years old, you're 8 years old, and you're getting dubbed tapes and, Ice Cube and NWA and Gorillas in the Mist and all this stuff. That's what I fell in love with. And I never really strayed from that. I never really listened to anything else except rap. And by the time I hit 14 years old, I remember I was like, I should do one of these like 4 elements. Like, I should try this. I was like, got on the carpet and was like, try to like break dance and shit. I was like, I'm horrible at that.
Heard your beatbox game is terrible too.
Yeah, I mean, particularly back then, it was like. And I was like, all right, I'll keep working on that, but I suck at that too. And eventually it picked up a pen, and out of any like scholastic subject, I was horrible at math. I could draw. Science wasn't my thing. I could write, and I always had that like imagination. I was just a weird, creative kid, and would write stories, and had that type of that minds that translated into the paper more than anything else. And started writing at 14, 15, and it was a very different time back then in hip hop music because no one had a computers like weren't used for recording yet. Mm-hmm. I'm that old. I don't even think we had a computer yet. So all that you had, for one, recording was very sparse. So everything existed in the world of like, let's go to the park and freestyle. Let's go outside at lunchtime at school and freestyle. Everything was freestyling.
Ciphers.
It was ciphers. Yeah. That's what it was, and that's how you honed your craft, and that's how you got better. And sure, like you might get eaten up in an MC battle, but there's that competition aspect. That's like, all right, I'm gonna get him next battle, or I'm gonna get him next time. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. You
learn from it.
You learn from it, absolutely. And you also don't have a video camera where you can see yourself back and be like, damn, my voice is horrible. I didn't really know that my voice sounded like a chipmunk when I was 15 years old. I thought I was dope. And if YouTube would have been around, I would have got shat on back then. But I didn't know that. So, and I had one of those moms that was just like, you're awesome. Keep going. Keep doing it.
Keep going, man.
And yeah, it was just a very different time in hip-hop culture in general before the internet popped up.
It seemed like you paired up, man. Elevated elements, man. What's going on with that, man?
Super spiritual. One person.
That was like...
We had a big fan base.
It was a big, like, 4-person collective? You paired up?
Five. Yeah.
Green varsity jackets, I heard?
Yeah.
I did my research,
doing
man.
Your homework, man. We all kind of went to different high schools in the area, and started performing. Jay again used to do this thing called Sure Shot Sundays at the Sit and Spin, and it was this little tiny like laundry mat with a small venue in the back. Wow. And those were some of our first shows. They kind of popped because we all went to different schools in the area. There was 5 different schools. You have 30 friends from each spot.
Looking good. That's a good room.
I can't do the math, but that's not
150,
bad.
150.
There you go.
That's better than 30 people in the crowd.
Yes, absolutely. So we had a little following. Yeah, we freestyles, small shows, and it was always, for the first couple years, it was really based around, I was getting into like drugs and I was smoking weed and drinking, I'm 15, 16 years old, messing up in school, not listening to my parents, just being a knucklehead and going through that phase. And by the time I hit around 17, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I can't smoke like that. Like, I can't write raps when I'm high, and if I'm smoking weed, skipping school, like, this isn't gonna work. And I went to Garfield my freshman year, did horrible, almost got kicked out. My parents pulled me out, sent me up north to a school called Nathan Hale, which I hated.
Oh, they know about that, Nathan. You can still cheer it up if you went to Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale in the house. Yeah, yeah.
I hated it, but you know what? I met a drug and alcohol counselor. His name's Rick Harwood, and he changed my life, man. He got me sober for the most part. I'm still doing mushrooms. But I was sober. I wasn't smoking weed, and I really focused on my music and graphic arts. So I was like making my own album art, and I'm working on the music all the time. And at that point, I got enough money to get a digital 8-track, and I just stayed inside all the time, rapping and making songs, and that's all that I did.
And that's Open Your Eyes, right? That was the first real project you put out in 2000. But then the next thing wasn't until The Language of My World. That was in 2005, right?
Yeah.
So what was you doing those 5 years in between? Like, what made you?
What
was going on in your life at that time?
I went to college. I took a year off from school. I traveled. I went to India and Philippines and Nepal and Thailand and did a little sabbatical. Got some life experience. Came back. I was making all my own beats. So I'm just making music because I like to make music. I'm not thinking like I have a chance of getting signed or like I'm gonna pop up. Like, there just wasn't even that. It was just because I like to make music. So there wasn't some time constraint. And I wanted to get better, and I was getting better, but it took me a long time. Like, a lot of these kids, like, pop off at 17, 18 years old, and I just wasn't one of them. And I wasn't.
What was missing, do you think? What was missing? Just confidence in the flow? Like, what was
I think that there was still some interesting subject matter in terms of what I was writing. I hit puberty late, man. I'm gonna put it on that. Like,
I put that on puberty.
Yeah, I put that on puberty. I remember like being in the mirror in 8th grade, like, come on, grow. Mom, I got one. And she'd be like, that's peach fuzz, Ben. I was late, so my voice was dumb. It was all high and stupid, and I was trying to sound like other people. I was like, trying to be super styled out and sound like Freestyle Fellowship from LA, and everyone was biting people. And you go through that stage of like, I'm gonna copy somebody else before I think that you find yourself. And certain people just find themselves earlier or are really good at copying people. And I was horrible at copying people. But some of those records, I would be embarrassed if we play them right now. But I think that the ideas,
don't worry, we don't gotta
good. The ideas were forming, and the person that I was, and the things that I cared about were there. Those were very formative years in terms of the artist that I was becoming, and the man that I was becoming. Yeah. It sounds so deep.
No, but I mean, speaking of deep, so then the next couple of years, you mentioned drug usage and dealing with substance abuse, something you was dealing with early on.
Yeah.
And then it kind of hit a tough period in that time.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
you eventually went to rehab. Like, how did that happen?
I mean, you ask what took so long in terms of, the first album to The Language of My World. I think that, I was kicking it. Like, I was a kid. I wasn't, I'd go through periods of being super focused and sober, and then when I would start, I was on. Like, I was off the wagon, and I was smoking weed all day, every day, not writing, drinking a bunch and wilding out. And I just never had that balance. I had no moderation. And it was a huge hindrance to my creativity. So I go for short periods and then go back out and be kicking it for like 3 months and not do anything. So those periods of of focus eventually led to 2005, where I put out The Language of My World. The one thing that I have had in my favor, and it took me a long time to actually become successful with it, but is making mistakes and learning who I was through those mistakes and writing some of the best records because I messed up. And if I wasn't a drug addict, if I wasn't somebody that always struggled with moderation, I wouldn't have written songs like Other Side or Starting Over. And those records have connected with many, many, many people all over the world. So you look at lapses, and sure, at times can I be like, man, I wish that I was like 22 years old versus like 30 years old. That would be awesome. But
wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be, and I'm here. And if I would have had this level of success at 22, I don't know that I would be here. Yeah.
No, you said sobriety is the reason why you are here. In a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah.
No, without a question.
So was it just why do you think you weren't able to control things in moderation? Like, what was it about it that made it hard to deal with these things in moderation?
I'm Irish.
Are you saying you could outdrink me now?
No, not anymore.
Yes, sir.
Back in the day, I would have whooped your ass.
But, I know.
It's tough to say. It's tough to say what makes somebody not have moderation. I know a couple things. I know that when I first drank alcohol when I was 14 years old, it was by myself. It was after school. I was listening to Tupac, and I took like 12 shots.
12 shots of what?
Of vodka, of my parents' vodka. Wow. That's not really a normal thing.
Wasn't it like your chest on fire? Like, didn't you feel like...
I didn't have a chest. I was just this little tiny bag of bones. And
it's crazy that we can laugh at it. We're so effed up.
Yeah. But
it's life.
But that was the first time that I ever used a substance, and getting that first feeling of like, wow, like I'm kind of warm. I like this. I'm gonna do this until I'm throwing up in a trash can at McDonald's downtown at Westlake and almost getting arrested. And
somebody's like, "Ooh, I was on that block."
Yeah,
I did that last weekend.
And that was it. And that's just how I drank. That's how,
and drinking different type of things, right? It wasn't even just, was it?
I mean, I didn't, for the majority of my life, my main vices were weed and alcohol. So those were my drugs of choice. But that's how I wasn't, the equivalent of that is smoking an eighth of weed a day and waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning and smoking a blunt to start out the day and going through and spending $50 on a weed habit when you don't have that type of money and you're thinking of any ways. I'm just that type of addict, and I always have been. I think that once and it's tough to describe, but I always felt like I had potential. Like I had the potential to connect with people through my music. I felt something greater than myself while writing songs. Like that's how I connected to God. And when you feel that and you have that experience, it's a powerful moment. And there becomes almost a responsibility in your own head. Like, I'm supposed to do this. I always felt like I was supposed to do this. And regardless if I was horrible, if my record sucked at the time, I still felt like I was supposed to be doing this. And when I would smoke and I would drink, it would immediately be like, I'm not supposed to do this. I would have these thoughts like, this is killing my potential. I'm supposed to do that, and if I'm doing this, I can't do that. And this is killing any sort of chance at a career or any sort of chance at just making art. Take the career away. And if I did it, I would be almost so in a place of fear and guilt that I'd be like, I need to keep doing it. Because in order for this to work, in order for me to kick it and have fun, I need to go super hard. And it wasn't even a choice. It was just like, I'm smoking weed all day long. I'm turning off any sort of connection to God, and I'm just doing this. And that's how it went for a really long time.
So when did it hit rock bottom? Because I know you ended up, your father checked you into rehab. Like, and I also was at an important point where lean was playing a factor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. You know, I was in my mid-20s, and it had gotten bad. Like, I lasted 4 months sober. And when I fell off, I fell off hard, you know. And I was dabbling with other drugs, like nothing that was, you know, I mean, the drugs were serious, but nothing like a crazy addiction. But, you know, I was messing around with lean. You know, I do coke on occasion. Did a little bit of OC. You know, there's misinformation on the internet that says that that's why I went to rehab was OC. That's not true. But, you know, I definitely did feel at one point the clutches of what the power of that drug, with very intense detoxing involved. But for the most part, it was, you know, I was killing myself. I had no career. The record that I had put out in 2005, The Language of My World, which I was able to live off of for a couple years.
Doing shows and stuff.
Doing shows and stuff. And that momentum had completely died down. Wasn't getting called. Wasn't making new music. And was really depressed, isolated. I was a liar. I was dishonest in my relationship. I was a cheater. I wasn't proud of who I was. And thank God my dad came to me and was just like, you know, what are you doing with your life right now? You're not happy. And, you know, whether this rap is it or whether you need to get a different job, like at the very least, I want to see you happy. And you can't do this on your own. And I was like, I got this. Like, I'll go to AA. Like, I'd never tried going to AA. And he was like, nah, you need to, like, you know, you don't have anything going on. Like, there's no reason for you to be in Seattle right now.
Pulling you away.
Yeah, there was no festivals. There was no shows booked. There was nothing for me to be like, no, I need to stay for this. There had always been, no, I need to stay. I got a show coming up in a couple weeks. There was nothing. Everything was gone. And, you know, I thought about it for a couple days and made the best decision I've ever made, which was going to treatment for 5 weeks.
That was in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like to go there? How difficult was that transition to go through that program?
It was a beautiful transition, man. I wanted it. I wanted to be sober. I really, really did. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the tool set. And that is, you know, when you want something but you don't know how to get it. Like I couldn't stay sober for long enough to actually see a change in my life. And going there, something just clicked. And
so it felt right away once you was there. Like,
oh yeah, I mean the first couple of days, you know, you're kind of going through like, oh, I'm not smoking weed at 7 a.m. This is strange, but eventually, you know, for whenever I would like sober up by like day 2 or 3, and you wake up in the morning and you don't have that like weed hangover. You don't need to go hit up the drug dealer at 9 a.m. When you start to see clear, like colors come back and things are vibrant and you're breathing in air and you're grateful for your life without having a substance involved. That's the best, you know, when you get back into your essence. So treatment for me was like, it was a honeymoon. This is where they feed you well. The food was awesome. Had some milkshakes every once in a while. It was great. And you know, you're getting healthy. You know, I was so unhealthy. You know, I always had a cough. I was always sick. I was always puking. Like and you detox, and life starts to come back to you, and you realize that there's something in this universe. You connect with God again. I mean, you're raw, you're emotional, and you're learning how to live life without a substance. And in rehab was awesome. I got out of rehab, moved back into my parents' basement.
This is like
Don't tell anybody
08,
that.
09? Well, say again?
I said, don't tell anybody that.
This is like 08, 09?
Yeah, something like that. And I was so depressed. Like, I just wanted to sleep. I'd wake up, I go to bed at like midnight and wake up at noon and go back to bed. Like, I just was depressed. Because the reality hits you. It's like, I wasted years of my life. You can't get those years back. And there's nothing like the weight of knowing that you missed, you felt like you missed your shot. You missed your opportunity. Here I am at like, 25 years old, back in with my parents, and I had a chance at a rap career, and I blew it, and I was depressed. I had faith, and I was working a spiritual program that kept me going, but it was some of the most difficult months of my life for sure, because, I blew it. I thought.
You couldn't stop reflecting on
Yeah.
missed opportunities or...
Yeah, missed opportunities. I mean, literally years of my life were just wasted. I couldn't remember them. It wasn't like the glory days, and like, it was like I was a bastard. I was somebody that I didn't like, and I wasn't proud of it, and I didn't really remember it. So it was a very difficult time, but that's what started the process of working with Ryan and making the Verses EP, was realizing that I had another shot at it. And if the music that would turn into the Verses EP didn't connect with people, I was ready to give it up. Now, I probably wouldn't have stopped writing music or recording or whatever, but in terms of going out and getting a 9-to-5, it was like, if this doesn't work, if this music doesn't connect, I'm gonna have to get a job.
This is my last shot.
This is it. Yeah, there's no coming back from this one.